Welcome to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. It is Tuesday, the 9th of December, 2025, and we are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube, and we are streaming at WYAB.com. If you can't pick up the blowtorch, you can always catch us online, and we'd appreciate that. If you're not already, would you do me a favor today and follow me on X? It's simple. It's just Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. That's where you can find me. And the mission here on the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. Today, we've got a heck of a show. A heck of a show. And it's brought to you by Matthew 17:21. Go ahead and look that up and just get back to me on that. I'm really excited because next Tuesday in the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to have Patricia Williams on the show. And everybody's sitting here saying, who is Patricia Williams? She is the chairman of the Carver County GOP. And Carver County, that is in Minnesota. And that is ground zero for the Somali invasion. They are up there fighting this, and we are going to get a firsthand perspective next week of what it's like living up there. And it's going to be awesome to have some outside perspective coming here to Mississippi so that you can see how good we have it here, number one. But number two, how difficult it really is to go after these illegal immigrants who are completely destroying local economies, destroying local cultures up there. It's completely flipped on its head. It's an interesting quote that was given to me. No man can get rich in politics unless he's a crook. Who said that? I'll let that one float out there for a little bit. I have all sorts of stuff that I want to talk about. We obviously we've got the whole Benny Johnson situation. Full disclosure, I'm a fan of Benny Johnson. I don't know what he did in his past, and there's a lot of people out there who are asking, "Hey, what's going on out there with Benny?" And all I'm going to say is if you're going to start throwing stones, uh, I would just remember what happened when they brought the woman to be executed to be found in the act of adultery, and what happened with that story. I'm not saying Benny's perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect. How many times have I've personally come on the show and thank goodness I didn't have a cell phone when I was a kid. I'd be in trouble. They say that the World Wide Web, Wild West is ending. They're going to start putting on more controls. Part of me is excited for this. A even bigger part of me is absolutely panicked because they're going to be able to start really controlling what we can look at. We've got Ron DeSantis in Florida just going absolutely insane over care and outlawing it and calling it a terrorist organization. We've got some more map drama. And we even have a Zorhan Mandami update that we're going to talk about. But I think the place we need to start is what's happening inside. Some people would call it conservative ink. Some people would call it the infestation of liberals into conservative media circles. And there's a lot that needs to be said about this. There are some really good conservatives out there who were not always conservative. There are some really good conservatives out there who have been a conservative their entire life. There are some really good conservatives out there who are Christian. There are some really good conservatives out there who are atheists. There are some great conservatives out there who are black, and there's some great conservatives out there who are white. It's all of us. And so when I started seeing what happened on Tim Pool's show, and that's really where this all started with M- Milo, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce Milo's last name. You can go look him up. Formerly a homosexual, said he prayed himself out of it, and now he is coming out there blazing and calling a bunch of people out for things that we can't prove. But if we're truthful with each other, we know that there's a lot of really good conservatives who have passed when we look at it and we're like, yeah, but they've changed their ways. They've moved on in life. And Benny Johnson has written for BuzzFeed. Clay had another name for it this morning. If you didn't tune into that, you need to listen to that segment. It was in the second hour that I joined him. It was really some good stuff. But my point is here, I'm not excusing things that happened in anybody's past, but they have to come to the realization of that. And if we're going to plant our flag in the sand and we're going to become a bunch of Puritans, don't go to the jails. Don't talk to your kids. Don't cast that first stone. And it's heartbreaking because we've got things going on, and we're going to talk about it. We've got things that are going on that are going to be so much more difficult to overcome, like the 2026 midterms. We need all of us. We do. We need all of us. And if we don't have all of us, 2026 is going to be so difficult. I'm one of these people when it comes to life and in politics specifically. I always knew where I was in the race. And even when I was up big, I was down 3 points. I always worked, campaigned, strategized, and advised people to act like they're 3 points down. Because things can change in an instant. You can get all comfortable. But there are people out there like Milo, like Candace, who are not operating in the best interests of the United States of America. They're operating in the best interest of their grift, and their grift is strong. Some people could say, "Oh, Andrew, Bay Thompson's grifting too. Tim Pool's grifting too." I don't blame Tim Pool for leaving the internet and taking a break, or maybe potentially quitting altogether. United States has gone mad because we didn't hold our kids to the rod. And now people are showing up at people's houses, firing shots for speaking on the internet, for speech. Charlie Kirk, martyred for speech. Make no mistake, and this is not my quote. I've been bombarded with thousands of quotes about Charlie, but this one really rings true to me. They didn't kill, they didn't murder, they didn't martyr Charlie Kirk because he was speaking. It was because Gen Z was listening. He was putting out a message that not only Gen Z was resonating with, but millennials were resonating with, Gen Xers were resonating with, even some boomers were resonating with. They can't be having that. We can't have an articulate young man who knows how to organize, mobilize, and empower the youths of America to go out there and win elections, to be predominant figures in local elections with the hope and potential of building some national leaders. And, and you know, I've been very upfront with my thoughts on Candace Owens. I think what she did to those young skulls full of mush, yeah, they made a great decision to serve their country, but they need mentorship, they need leadership. They don't need some millionaire sitting behind a webcam in a studio saying, "Oh, don't follow orders, don't accept your deployment orders to DC or Chicago or LA or wherever. Just take the dishonorable discharge. Who cares? Who cares?" Even if she affected one, pure evil, pure evil. You there is such a fine line, and I still have the video saved. I don't know if I wanna play the full 4-minute audio of and this is another one, Laura Loomer. She goes out there and 1 minute, she makes incredible sense, and the next minute, you're like, "Stop the insanity." But somehow she interviewed a Navy JAG officer, rank of commander, which is '05, lieutenant colonel for all of the people outside of the Navy and the Coast Guard, and he was so frank and so honest. It's really good to hear about what a lawful order is and what an unlawful order is. An unlawful order is so evident when it's given, and honestly, I've never gotten one. Never. Have I questioned orders because I needed clarity? Yes. But I never did it in the moment because I never thought it was unlawful. It was strange because I hadn't done that before, and then when I went back and would say, "Master Chief, why did you tell me to do this?" "Gasser, did you do it?" "Yes, Master Chief, I did, but can you please explain?" "Not now, come back after shift." I'd come back after shift. "Gasser, thank you so much for asking this question." Gave me 45 seconds of the Master Chief's time as a young NCO. I got it, went forward. You know what? It made life so much easier. We are sitting here questioning 35-year vice admirals who are not just team guys, they're the top of the top. And he's having to go on air and explain to some mealy mouth congressman who hates America why we're doing the things we're doing. I get it. We have to do it. That's part of the rules. But it is absolutely insane that we are having to have this. And what we don't understand is, and I know I'm up against a break, but I want to get to this point and we'll talk. You know what? Well, let's take the break. And when we get back, I'm going to explain to you why all of these things are happening the way they are. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back at the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. We are moving and grooving. We're talking about the craziness that's going on inside conservative talk radio. It's more of a national kind of crisis, I would guess, right now. I would call it a crisis, actually, because these are people who are reaching hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people daily. And what is happening to the people, to our conservative voices, it is they are being either marginalized or flat out being taken out. And that's why, Clay talks about the infiltration of conservative talk shows. And he's talking about the beta males that are coming in here who are doing all sorts of craziness. We talked about the Daily Wire. Ben Shapiro, who goes after conservatives if they're not pro-Israel, and you are watching people like Candace Owens going after people. And if I know I've used this analogy before, but I really want to drive it home. You draw a circle, a perfect circle, 360 degrees. And it's not an oval, it's nothing, it's just a perfect circle. And all of a sudden, Candace comes out and makes a claim. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be against someone. It can be, for instance, the deployment of troops. And what it does is it just takes a slice off of that perfect circle on the top right quadrant. You just the smallest of slices. And then you have a Milo come in, and then you have a Laura Loomer come in, and then you have someone else come in. And the next thing you know, your circle is not good. But there are other things you can do too. The murder of Charlie Kirk. That's not taking a slice out of a circle. That's chopping the circle in half. Not that Charlie's voice was that big. It wasn't, but it was so vulgar and so evil that it impacts the circle, right? The bubble almost pops. And of course, you had mass call. Charlie Kirk's memorial service filling the Arizona Cardinals football stadium. I don't know the name of the stadium. I'm sure someone can tell me. But you look at what that does, and it hurts the movement. And I am no saint. I'm here to equip the saints. But if you define saint as a goody two shoes kind of guy, well, that ain't me. I'm not that creature anymore. And now we have, this is almost like the muckrakers back in the 1920s and 30s. Remember learning about that in high school? The muckrakers? Actually, I learned about it in middle school. Shout out to Mr. Hettinger. He would teach history and even the stuff that was unpopular. There was even a school board meeting where they were kind of getting on him a little bit. I can remember it. I can remember my mom going to it. Because he was teaching some history that some people thought was offensive, even back in the 80s. I will support Benny Thompson. I might not agree with some of the stuff that comes out from his past, but when you think about all the reporting he did, think about after President Trump was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, Benny went out there and was actually getting on the roof and walking around and doing stuff Did CBS or ABC do that? No, not really. Did our mainstream media do that? No, not really. Benny did. Benny did. I think about Tim Pool, and I know Timcast has really evolved into some stuff. In fact, there was a point where I not only quit listening to him, I unsubscribed from Timcast. I just kind of cut myself off because I didn't necessarily agree with what he was doing, but I respected him and I never trashed him. In fact, my senior political advisor and I talked about it for a long time. And in fact, he is still a supporter of that, and I support that. What Tim Pool tried to do civilly is bring up topics and bring up topics into the culture that is being attacked and forced out. We can't talk about certain things. And Tim would bring that up. And what made Tim's show so special is that that thing was going over YouTube. He was fighting big tech, still is. Crowder, same thing. I don't like everything he does, and his personal life might be a mess. Everybody go look in the mirror and say, "My life is not a mess, it's absolutely perfect." Andy, well, he's influencing hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Yep. So is Elon Omar. So is Zorhan Mandami, Jasmine Crockett, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer. We could go on and on. Do they get a blank pass because they're elected? You know, conservatives have a really good idea of where they want to take the country, but some of us have a Puritan test, and you know what? You're going to just continue to isolate yourself. And some people, I've gotten this. I have one of the texters here absolutely loves my conservative takes until it gets preachy, and that's where I get my conservative takes from. Should I just completely ignore that part of it and realize, hey, this is why we're at where we're at? Be, that's where I'm at in my walk because of those values and those beliefs. I think there is so much more to what is happening with quote unquote big conservative media, whether that be the Daily Wire, Candace Owens, Milo, uh, even Laura Loomer and what's going on there. Man, I don't want to tear people down, especially conservatives. I will honestly debate liberals, and I feel I can win the argument, I can win the debate. But my job, my mission is not to destroy them to where there's no way for them to have a redemption arc. The goal is to say, welcome home. You know, some people say that Christianity is exclusively inclusive. It accepts everybody. You just have to accept it. And if you don't, go live your life. Go be you. I think the ramifications of not just what Candace or Milo did, but all of these things starting to stack up before 2026. If you can't see, they are going to pull out every trick in the book, every possible idea that they can go out there and change the 2026 election. They're going to do it. And, you know, conservatives are fighting back. Whether I agree with it or not, this redistricting stuff, if you just see what happened in Indiana, we'll talk about it in the next segment when we get back here on the Andrew Gosser Show. They're trying. The Republicans and Trump are trying, but I want us to play like we're 3 points down, maybe not like some of these polls we're gonna talk about are talking about. We'll be right back right here on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. You can always count on Brother Rick to give you an interesting perspective. People might not like what Candace Milo Alex Jones, myself, Clay, or anyone else says, but at least they have the testicular fortitude to say it. Obviously, Brother Rick, you got to kind of take some editor's intuition right there to make it PG. I try to make this a little bit PG, although if I'm being truthful with everyone, I am a sailor, and sometimes, man, I see some of the stuff coming out of my mouth. I'm like, holy smokes, that's not what I meant to say. Let's have some humor. I want to have some humor if I can find it real quick here. President Trump came out on hurricanes, and we had that big hurricane deal, and listen to this. This is just pure poetic justice.
My fellow Americans, it is my great honor, the greatest honor, to announce and declare complete and total victory over the 2025 hurricane season. We had 0 hurricanes in the Gulf of America ever since we made the name change. I got along very well with, you may have heard of her, Mother Nature. You may have heard of her. She's a tremendous person. I've known her for a long time, and we get along well. And I said to her, if you send any hurricanes into our country, we're going to hit you with tariffs the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. We're going to tariff those storms at 1,000, 2,000, 3,000%. And she said, sir, we're not going to send any hurricanes in. And we made a beautiful deal. Mother Nature, great person. But we had a lot of, they call it wind shear. They call it wind shear. And it ripped up the storms out there before they can get to our country, ripped up the storms worse than the Somalians are ripping up Minnesota. You look at Ilhan, you look at the brother. Many people are saying it. She married her brother. And very interesting. If she did that, it's a raw deal for the brother. He divorced his first wife, which was probably a goat, and wound up marrying a pig in Ilhan Omar. She's a nasty person, very nasty. But you had a lot of people talking about it. It's an El Nino year. It's a La Nina year. You're going to have hurricanes. We deported El Nino, and we deported La Nina, too. They were in our country illegally. We got rid of them. And we had the greatest hurricane season the world has ever seen. No hurricanes in the Gulf of America. We did a tremendous job. So I wanted to thank Mother Nature for holding up her end of the bargain. She did a fantastic job. And we had a wonderful and safe Atlantic hurricane season. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
I laughed hysterically when one of my texters sent that to me. And clearly, that is Sean Farash. If you don't know, he is on X. He is a Trump impersonator, voice impersonator. But he said something there, and I want to go back because I talk all the time about this global warming terror organization that's out there that is just scaring the heck out of people. And look, they've, since the millennials, truly about the early 1990s, they have really scared the heck out of an entire generation of kids. NOAA predicts above normal 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, May 22, 2025. Forecasters within NOAA, the National Weather Service, predict an above normal hurricane activity in the Atlantic Basin this year. NOAA's outlook for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, which goes from June 1st to November 30th, predicts a 30% chance of a near normal season and a 60% chance of an above normal season, with a 10% chance of below normal season. The agency is forecasting 13 to 19 total named storms. Of those, 6 to 10 are forecast to become hurricanes. 3 to 5 major hurricanes. And it goes on and on and on. This coming from CBS News, November 25th. This is after they had the snot suit out of them. They fired their entire newsroom, and now they're bringing in new people. The 2025 hurricane season is drawing to a close without a single one making landfall in the continental United States. for the first time in a decade. Now, we are not dismissing what happened to Jamaica. Took a direct shot. We're not turning that away, but what we are saying is that we do not understand how hurricanes really work. We need to understand that. But for us to go out there and scare the heck out of kids with Captain Planet and all of these dire forecasts, it impacts our culture. It impacts why we do things. I do enjoy playing the Dan Rather report from CBS back in 1982, but I think we've killed that one enough for the year. We'll put that on the back burner till next year. We'll bring that one out. But we see it in our reporting. We see it in our news agencies. And if they can lie about this, or not, maybe lie is too strong of a word, but if they can instill fear into the most technological savvy society on planet Earth, the United States of America, if they can manipulate us with this, what can they do when they really decide to turn the screws? And it's funny because this guy clearly read this, but it talks about winds and air pressure, wind shear. It does talk about Hurricane Melissa, which took out Jamaica. And, we're praying that they get back quickly and recover. I love the Caribbean. I've cruised down there a lot in the military. And I even took a civilian cruise, which was incredible. And I just wanna say that this story that I got about the hurricane season was written by Emily May Chakzor. And you know what? I'm just gonna do it because names are terrible, but this came out on November 25th, so this is about 2 weeks old, but when I saw that video, I was just like, "Man, if we're just talking about that now," and it's on my X if you wanna go ahead and read the story for yourself. They're already moving on now to where they're naming winter storms. Have you seen that yet? And they're already starting to talk about snowfall being horrible. You know, I was in the snowplow business for a few years. It was precious to do, and I'm glad I got to serve constituents, but they would say the same thing every year. "It's gonna be a bad one. You better make sure you've got everything." And we did. We got through it, but this is just another example, uh, where we're having to fight this kind of stuff. We don't need the infighting inside Conservative Inc. And I think the more that this audience educates itself and gets to hear stories like this, the better off we're gonna be. And then if you really want more detail, from a weather global alarmist point of view, you can always go to Wikipedia and just look at the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. They go through every named storm. You can get as smart on that as you want. My takeaway is that, yep, we don't have to worry about that. Last story, because I got to go to break here, is about the sweet toots. My daughter, love her to death. She drove my car last night, brought it home, didn't crash it, +1. Comes back almost on empty, and I've got to get to work in the morning, -1. Gosh almighty, does that ever just fire you up when you gotta get to work or you gotta get somewhere and you let your kiddo borrow the car and she is gold, she is awesome, but man almighty, this is a trend item. We gotta work at that at the the household. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Nope, they will not stop us. We'll keep moving on and on and on. We might have some obstacles thrown at us, but we will overcome. Now, on this show, I have been very critical of the Attorney General of Mississippi because I haven't been able to locate any real prosecutions of voter fraud, election fraud, broad categories. But, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a case. And this is coming from the Magnolia Tribune. I could have gone somewhere else, but any chance I get to promote a local business, I'm going to do it. This is coming from Frank Corder at the Magnolia Tribune. Sentencing's handed down in Mississippi ballot harvesting case. Bobby Jean Peoples of Greenwood has been sentenced for transmission of a ballot mailed to another, according to the Mississippi Attorney General's office. Prosecutors said that Peoples knowingly collected and transmitted a ballot mailed to another person in July 2023 when she was not authorized by law to do so. Attorney General Lynn Fitch said Monday that the ballot harvesting undermines the trust and fairness of our elections, and we must be vigilant to maintain the integrity of the electoral process. Concur, we agree, we're on it. So what happened? She ended up being fined. I want to make sure I get the. She has now been sentenced to LaFleur County Justice, or sentenced by LaFleur County Justice Court Judge Jim Campbell to 6 months in custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections with time suspended and a fine of $2,718.75. She's not going to jail. She's going to spend $2,718.75. She probably got another 10 to 15,000 in legal bills. And this was only one count. So we can't say she did more, but she could have. Frankly, I'm disappointed that she had her time suspended. I think the fine is too low. And I've had a couple of texters like really unload on Attorney General Lynn Finch on this. But this is not her fault. It's actually the legislator's fault. And State Rep Noah Sanford wanted to make it tougher. He had a bill that died in the Senate. Imagine that. With no more than that would have made it no more than 3 years in prison and up to a $5,000 fine for this kind of activity in Mississippi, but we don't have it. And you know what I'm saying? I'm glad that Attorney General Lynn Finch got this prosecution. I hope there's about 75,000 more out there. Not that I want that many, but I want her to go in and get these people because they need to be prosecuted. We need to set a tone in Mississippi that says if you do this kind of behavior, you're going to pay the price. And I think the price that Bobby paid was not nearly what it should have been. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show. We'll be right back. Yes, yes, you are. You are tuned in to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We are Mississippi's 50,000-watt blowtorch, and we are out there moving and grooving. Look, if you want to be part of the show today, the number is 601-879-0002. Text line is always open, getting some great texts. 601-879-5060. And we are streaming on that platform known as Rumble. We are streaming on that platform that is known as X. We are streaming on that platform that is known as YouTube. And of course, at our website, wyab.com, you can just hit the listen live and away you go. If for some reason you can't pick up our radio signal, we appreciate you tuning in and listening to the stream. And if you wouldn't mind liking the stream, subscribing to the channel, and following me on X, I would sincerely appreciate it. My name on X is just at Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. Mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is to equip the saints. Who are the saints? All of you all are the saints. Not because you're perfect in nature, but because you're rolling in the right direction and you're following. And that's why you're a saint. A gentle answer turns away wrath, a harsh word incites anger. As iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. And we've got to continue to sharpen our blades up, sharpen our tips up, get the spears ready to go. Get the spears ready to go. I am excited because I've actually got a few guests lined up. It's looking like this Friday, retired Navy Chief Buck Tursky from Jones County is going to be in the office. Next week on Tuesday, I've got Patricia Williams going to be calling into the show from Minnesota. She is the GOP chairman of Carver County, and she is going to drop fire on what's happening with the Somali situation up there. And then what's really awesome is I am working right now for a special guest who will remain anonymous until we actually have the show. But I'm telling you this, you are not going to want to miss it. It's going to be special and it's going to be epic. In the last hour, I read a quote. No man can get rich in politics unless he's a crook. Do you know who said that? Harry S. Truman. He's right. He's right. From the grave, he's right. People can say, I don't like him. He got an aircraft carrier named after him. Not saying that that means much, but it means that you must have had some significance in the history of our nation. Will they ever have an aircraft carrier named the Barack Hussein Obama or the Donald J. Trump? I don't think Bill Clinton's going to get one. Quite frankly, the Nimitz just got back from cruise. Supposedly, its last one. They say it's going to start decommissioning next year. With all the problems that the new John F. Kennedy's having and the enterprise behind that, I would not be surprised if they tried to milk out one more cruise out of Nimitz. But for me personally, I wish we would go back to naming our carriers after some of our famous admirals, the presidents, and quite frankly, the USS America. That was my ship, so I'm a little biased there, right? I admit it. But man, we were America's team. We were America's tip of the spear. From 91 to 96, I was deployed every year. We just weren't home. Something would kick off. Oh, got to send America's team, the USS America Carrier Air Wing 1, because we were the best. And everybody at Fitwing knew it. So You might have heard about this poll coming out from Neapolitan News Service. Neapolitan News Service. Apparently, this is a very well-regarded poll, very accurate in the last 2 presidential cycles and last 2 congressional cycles. And they are spitting something out there that you are not hearing. I haven't even checked on Harry Enton. I should have probably got the Harry Enton crazy anti-Republican poll out there. But we do need good news, and we do need to get pumped up a little bit. So there's a couple questions here, and I'm just going to go through the data, give you the data, and then give you my take and opinion on it, because I feel as though this is leading down a path that we're not careful. We're going to be really upset. I think we're like 331 days till election 2026, 331 days. Question number 1, if the election for Congress were held today, would you vote for the Republican from your district or the Democrat from your district? So this is the House of Representatives, not the Senate. 45% Republican, 3% lean Republican, 3% lean Democrat, 41% Democrat, 3% would not vote, and 5% not sure. So what that says is that 48% are either lean Republican or Republican, and 44% is lean Democrat or vote Democrat. And it's a Republican +4, but because the margin of error is +5, you know, it could be as much as a Democrat +1, or in some places, it could be Republican +53, and we know that's not happening. But they do this every month, and I just want to start off with where the trends are, and let's build this picture in the House. In January 2025, it was Republican +7. February, Republican +2. April, Democrat +5. May, Democrat +3. June, Republican +8. July, Republican +4. August, it was even. September, Republican +1. October, Republican +2. And this December, Republican +4. Man, that's making us look really good. That's putting us in a spot where we think that, hey, we might be doing all right. Let's get to the next part. How enthusiastic are you voting in the next congressional elections in 2026? 37% very enthusiastic, 33% somewhat enthusiastic, 19% not very enthusiastic, 7% not at all, and 4% not sure. So what this is telling me is that the last time this question was asked, which was in October, 70% were very enthusiastic or somewhat enthusiastic, where 26% were not very enthusiastic or not at all enthusiastic. And this number has been the same, but what this number kind of masks, and we don't really know because they're at different time frames, is how many of the Republicans are actually very enthusiastic to go out there and work for their congressman, and how are the Democrats with that. I think in Mississippi, unless truly someone gets caught with child pornography, I feel like all the incumbents are going to win. Just my opinion. If something comes out where there's a major scandal like that, I think something would happen. But even if like there was a stock scandal or some other type of scandal, I just don't think the incumbents are going to lose. I feel they're safe. Prove me wrong. But when I see polls like this come out, friends, where we're kind of gassing up the conservatives and the Republicans, I want to run the other way. I think this is setting us up for something really bad. And call me a doom scroller. I'm in the doom loop. But I have just seen personally too many times where the conservatives and the Republicans, we have the argument won. We're winning. And we pull defeat out of the jaws of victory. And every election is the most important election in the history of the United States of America. Our republic depends on it. If you're the Democrats, it sounds like this. Our democracy has never been in more danger. We are one election away from the conservatives taking control. You need to get out there and vote. We are one election away from losing our democracy forever. Some would say that's two birds of a feather flocking together. And people inside the chat are saying all incumbents politicians would win. It's unfortunate, but that's just how our system is set up in America right now. But I am excited because people are starting to get a little bit more, at least paying attention to what their local Congress critter is doing here inside Mississippi. I hear about it when I'm at the Ramey's Food Market in Brandon. I hear about it when I'm at the feed store in Clinton. And these are people who I would consider not really politically active, but they know me and they feel like they can come talk to me about their opinions on politics. And it's not necessarily that I agree with what they're saying, but I'm actually grateful and thankful that they're actually out there paying attention to this. That's good news for our local republic. When we have local elections where more people are involved because of the people who are involved and the issues that are at stake, that's great. But to sit here and forecast out 330 some days before the election saying, hey, we're looking good, man, if that was me, I'd be like, we are 3 points down. What do we have to do? How do I start building the get out the vote mechanism right now? And by the way, I'm not talking about some fake grassroots expert who wants to go out there and just start getting everybody to have permanent absentee ballots like they're trying to do in Minnesota. Think about that. Permanent absentee ballot. No, we need to make our elections not even a national holiday. We just have to restore the sacred duty it was for us to go out and vote back in the day. We could all why is it that in the 1980s and 90s, even 2000s, we would have elections, we would know who the president was by 3:00 in the morning, and now it's weeks and months? It's not better now. It's worse. It is absolutely worse. Anyways, I saw this poll. It was presented to me, and I was like, eh. But I think we can use that, and we can start to get people dialed in, not necessarily because we're going to change the local or our congressman out in this election. And I'm not badgering anybody. I think the system is rigged. And until we fix the system, we're going to continue to have the incumbents just have the ridiculous majority. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. We will be right back. Yeah, time keeps on moving. We are slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Clay ain't slipping. I ain't slipping. Nope. There are so many other stories to talk about here. One of them is the Indiana map. Now, For those of you who listened to the show yesterday, it's really important that we were looking at New England. And I pointed out how all the states ended up having no Republicans and all Democrats. It's right there on my X feed. If you can't see it, it's just all Democrats. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Looks like 18 Democrats seats, no Republicans. Well, Indiana said, hold my beer. And they did what some people want the Republicans in Mississippi to do. They took the Democrat stronghold and sliced it into 4 and just turned it into a red state. They said, we've had enough. We've had enough. Now, if my math is correct, and I do believe it's 18 congressional seats in New England that are going to the Democrats, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Republican seats, or 9 Republican seats, excuse me. 9 Republican seats in Indiana. And you know what? I will just heart that and repost that so you can see it. This is what happens. This is what happens when one side starts cheating the system. The other side eventually retaliates. And I had some Democrats, start texting me who I haven't even talked to in a long time since I left Illinois. And they're like, what Indiana's doing is horrible. So I just texted them a picture of New England and Illinois and said, is this believable? If you can do it, why can't the Republicans? And not one of those jokers texted me back. Not one. And I truly feel like we are in a point in our history where the actions that were started on one side with the gerrymandering, I'll say the Democrats, is making the United States more and more polarized. And if we do not realize that if we are not continuing to talk about whether it's Indiana, Florida, Texas, Ohio, I think is going to do it. We're getting to a point where we can't even talk to fellow Americans anymore. Where does that leave us? Not in 5, 10 years. Where does that leave us in 20, 30 years? I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to be around. I worry about it. I worry about the country that I'm handing over to my kids, or the country that's going to be handed over to my granddaughter, and I hope I have many more grandkids. We will see. But with that Indiana switch, it is now causing the state of Virginia to completely flip all of its seats to Democrat. So this is ping-ponging back and forth. It's going to create permanent countries inside the countries. And people are talking about fair maps. I'm not sure what a fair map is. I'm not sure what anything fair is, to be honest. I think that word is overused. Oh, we've got time for this. America's Associate Supreme Court Justice, the one we all turn to. This is 1 minute and 43 seconds. Guys, seriously, if you're in the car and parked, put on your seatbelt. If you are driving down the road and you don't have your seatbelt on, put it on, because this is going to hurt. But it's incredible.
Some issues, some matters, some areas should be handled in this way by nonpartisan experts. That Congress is saying that expertise matters with respect to aspects of the economy and transportation and the various independent agencies that we have. So having a president come in and fire all the scientists and the doctors and the economists and the PhDs and replacing them with loyalists and people who don't know anything is actually not in the best interest of the citizens of the United States. These issues should not be in presidential control. So can you speak to me about the danger of allowing in these various areas the president to actually control the Transportation Board and potentially the Federal Reserve and all these other independent agencies? In these particular areas, we would like to have independence. We don't want the president controlling. I guess what I don't understand from your overarching argument is why that determination of Congress, which makes perfect sense given its duty to protect the people of the United States, why that is subjugated to a concern about the president not being able to control everything. I mean, I appreciate there's a conflict between the two, but one would think under our constitutional design, given the history of the monarchy and the concerns that the framers had about a president controlling everything, that in the clash between those two, Congress's view that we should be able to have independence with respect to certain issues should take precedence.
That is Ketanji Brown Jackson. Can't tell you what a woman is, but she can tell you the president exercising his executive powers that are garnered to him in the Constitution of the United States bad. And we should allow Congress to defer to experts. And when we get back, we are going to hear from one of those congressmen who is an expert. And if you thought this was tough, ladies and gentlemen, just get ready because it's about to go nuclear. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back on the Andrew Gosser Show. Now, rarely in politics do we hear something as just bat spit crazy as Associate Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. But this guy always seems to come through. And he's had some other crazy speeches. And I realize this is a long clip, but this is the type of expert that Ketanji Brown Jackson wants to follow. Go.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is uniquely unqualified for his role. Every day, it becomes clearer that he is engaging in unlawful, illegal activity. That is why today I am preparing 2 articles of impeachment against Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. One for murder and conspiracy to murder, and another for reckless and unlawful mishandling of classified information. Recently, Pete Hegseth has been under increased scrutiny for his direct orders to kill everybody on a small civilian boat off the coast of Venezuela, which had no indication of being hostile.
Real quick, getting questions about this on text. This is a real congressman from Michigan. His name is Sri Fiander, I believe is how you pronounce it. And yes, he is in Congress representing the great people from the state of Michigan.
And we now know that Pete Hegseth not only carried out these strikes, but ordered those under his command to kill everybody and leave no survivors, an illegal act under our own laws of war. Even when 2 of those on board clung to life on the side of the boat, he ordered them to strike again to make sure they were dead. This was not an act of war. Congress has not declared war on Venezuela.
Congress hasn't declared war in forever, which is why this country is so screwed up. It's because people like you, Mr. Congressman, who don't declare war, creates this void for the administrative state, whatever you want to call it, to go in there and do all of this craziness. Quite frankly, you've got Ketanji Brown Jackson saying that Congress needs more control, yet they can't even do the things that they're supposed to do that's granted to them, gives them the power through the Constitution. Who I mean, let's just listen. There's so much more to this, but let's listen.
Hegseth and the administration gave the excuse of fighting narco-terrorism, but provided no evidence for their claim. So
How many Americans need to die from fentanyl, homie? How many Americans have to die from crack cocaine, homie? How many violent crimes that don't necessarily include the actual consumption of drugs, but include the distribution of drugs do we have to have in America before you can say that there is evidence? Because the evidence is everywhere, you're just blind.
let's be clear. These are extrajudicial, unlawful killings. This was murder. In addition, he is also actively endangering the lives of our brave service members. Earlier this year, Pete Hegseth recklessly mishandled classified information, leaking war plans in a Signal group chat, an unauthorized form of communication of classified information by the US government. Even worse, he accidentally added a journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg, to his group.
So let's get this straight. I actually asked about this when all of Signalgate was going down. And Signal, I couldn't believe it, but Signal is actually allowed by certain or is cleared to pass sensitive classified information between certain people. To me, whenever I hear about Signalgate, and I think about what would happen if this happened to anybody who wasn't a quote unquote journalist, we'd be in jail for making a story out of it. We'd be in trouble. But that's not what's going on here. This journalist is making a great name for himself. He's out there saying, "Oh, look at what I found." And yeah, the person who put that group chat together should be held to account. But this, nah, man, nope.
Chat, Hexeth proceeded to then leak classified war plans, including exact targets, methods of attack, and the exact times at which these targets would be attacked. The strikes were subsequently made on these targets, identical to how Pete Hexeth described them. If this information got into the wrong hands, American lives could have easily been lost. Such reckless and unlawful handling of classified information would be, for any of Pete Hexeth's civilian and military subordinates, a career-ending offense and likely result in criminal prosecution. This has to end now. That is why today I am calling for the impeachment of Pete Hexeth for the crime of murder and conspiracy to murder, for the reckless and unlawful mishandling of classified information, and for the flagrant violation of numerous military laws. I love the United States of America and will always fight to uphold our Constitution. Pete Hexeth must be brought to justice. Thank you.
And that is Congressman Sri Theander. If you remember, he brought articles of impeachment up against President Trump earlier this year. It just seems to me that the Democrat Party, whenever they need somebody to go out there and say something that is absolutely outrageous, but furthers the message, that they bring this guy out. And when you think about it, they continue to sit there and attack the morale and leadership in our military over and over again from different points of attack. You had Mark Kelly, you had all these other congressmen and senators who were either CIA or Army intelligence and analysts out there sitting there attacking the credibility, going after the admirals and generals who are prosecuting the war on drugs that are coming into our country and destroying the future of so many, destroying families because they lose their loved ones way too early. And then those who get addicted to whether it's crack, cocaine, fentanyl, meth, fill in the I mean, go look at what's happening in San Diego. Go look at what's happening. And you can see that the evidence is everywhere. Yet this guy puts out a video and 1.6 million views. And there are people out there who actually believe what this dude is spitting. You can go out there and say, actually, Signal is allowed to be used. Now, we all know that most people would not ever talk about classified information in a Signal. People do seem to think that Signal is a encrypted type of a messaging app that is safe. But I'm here to tell you there aren't any real platforms out there that are completely uncrackable or or able to be exploited, because they all can be. And the FBI, just like with the Crooks case in Butler, Pennsylvania, we know that the FBI got in there within a couple hours and was able to download all of that stuff. And if it wasn't for Tucker Carlson, we would not know that the FBI has that. We know they have it. And we want answers, and like a lot of wise law enforcement officers who know a lot more about this, there are things that they can tell us and there are things they can't. They are still exploiting that, and I get it, but there has to be some medium in there where the public can know what the heck's going on, and yet law enforcement can continue to make sure that everybody who was involved with Thomas Crooks goes ahead and is brought to justice. And sadly, we're going to be waiting a while longer, unless we just decide we don't care about everybody else. We just want to know. But I don't think that's wise. I don't think that's appropriate. But that's just my opinion. Where did the 2 hours go? We're up against our last commercial break of the show today. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back. It's been an awesome show. I'm excited for what's coming at the end of the week with Brother Buck. Next Tuesday with GOP Chairman of Carver County, Minnesota, Patricia Williamson. And, great things are happening. It's a time of the year where, so many of us spend time with our families and our friends. But I was just reading something where, there's a lot of military folks who are here stateside, but won't get to go home or won't get to hang out with family for whatever reason. And for me, as a military guy, so many of my deployments were what we would call holiday cruises or holiday deployments. You miss them all. I can remember spending one Thanksgiving in Afghanistan, and it was like I missed my kids and I missed my family, but at the same time, I was like, "There's no place I'd rather be." There, because not only am I with my brothers and sisters in arms, but I know because of the sacrifice we're making, being away from home and doing whatever it was that we were doing. Our friends and family and folks at home got to enjoy the holiday season with their freedom, with their liberty. But like President Reagan once said, our freedom, our country, our liberty is just one generation away from being gone forever. And if we're not careful, we will lose it. We will. I had all this stuff about the Somali embezzlement scheme that's going on. I've got Elon Omar quotes. I've got like a big stack of stuff. And I truly realize I didn't get to it today. I will try to lead with some of that stuff tomorrow. And we're going to start priming the pump for this because I am even more sure of it now that when we get done investigating what's happening in Minnesota, we're going to see it's happening all over the United States. And some people are saying, "Oh, Andrew, they don't have the actual proof yet. They're just saying this. We don't know." There are people who are in the know who understand that this is real, that this is happening. And if we're not careful, something is going to happen. So it's important to all of you. I'll make my plea again. Start reaching out to your state reps and your state senators. Get to know them. So that way, when it comes time to make an ask, you will actually, number one, know who your elected representative is, but they'll know you and they'll understand that you're serious. And in an election where you only need 1,000 votes to get elected, 5 votes is precious. 10 votes are precious. We've got to take this more seriously. I'm very grateful and thankful for all of you who tuned in today. Lindsay Beckham Show is next right here on 103.9 WYAB. We'll see you in 22 hours, everybody. Take care. Be blessed.